The Alliance patrol ship Starward glided through the darkness of space, its sleek blue hull gleaming under the light of distant stars. Captain Reed stood at the command center, his four-fingered hands clasped behind his back as he gazed at the large viewing screen. "Status report," he said, his voice calm and measured. Officer Jax, a tall green-skinned being with large eyes, looked up from his console. "All systems normal, Captain. We're approaching the edge of the neutral zone." Reed nodded. The neutral zone marked the border between Alliance space and the territory claimed by the Crescent Empire. Both sides watched this area closely. Neither wanted war, but neither trusted the other enough to leave the border unguarded. "Captain," called Science Officer Tella from her station. "Sensors are picking up something unusual ahead." Reed turned to look at the insectoid carrion. Tella's compound eyes reflected the light of her screen as her many-jointed fingers moved quickly across the controls. "What kind of unusual?" Reed asked. "A ship, sir. But..." She paused, mandibles clicking in confusion. "It doesn't match any known design in our database." Reed frowned. "Show me." The main screen changed to display a distant object floating in space. As the image zoomed in, Reed saw a strange-looking vessel. It was blocky and angular, with none of the smooth curves common to Alliance or Empire ships. It looked almost primitive, with visible plating and what appeared to be... Were those chemical thrusters? A small laugh escaped from communications. Officer Brell. "That can't be a real ship," he said. "It looks like something a child would build." Other officers joined in the laughter. The vessel did look absurd compared to their sleek, advanced ship. It had none of the elegant design or obvious weapon ports that marked modern space vessels. "Quiet," Reed ordered, though he smiled too. "Tella, any life signs?" Tella adjusted her instruments. "None that I can detect, Captain, but the ship's hull is made of some unusual alloy that might be interfering with our scans." Lieutenant Merrick, the security chief, stepped forward, his gray skin wrinkled with concern. "It could be a trap, sir. The Empire has been known to use decoys before." Reed considered this. "Any Empire ships in the area?" "None detected," Jaxie replied. "But we're close to the Scarlet Nebula. The gas clouds could hide a small fleet." Reed rubbed his chin thoughtfully. The ship didn't look dangerous. In fact, it looked like it belonged in a museum of early space travel. But appearances could be deceiving. "Take us closer," he decided, "but keep shields at maximum. If this is an Empire trick, I want us ready." The Starward moved toward the strange vessel, its engines humming quietly. As they approached, more details became visible. The ship was damaged. Black scorch marks marred one side, and a section of the hull appeared to have been blown open. "Weapons damage," Merrick noted. "Recent by the look of it." "Empire weapons?" Reed asked. "Consistent with their energy signatures," Tella confirmed. "But there's something else." She leaned closer to her screen. "I'm detecting unusual energy readings from inside the ship, unlike any power source I've seen before." Reed's interest grew. "Dangerous?" "Unknown, sir, but definitely not standard quantum drive technology." The officers exchanged worried glances. All advanced species used quantum drives. What kind of civilization would use anything else? "Look there." Jax pointed to markings visible on the ship's hull. "Some kind of writing." The screen zoomed in, on strange symbols painted on the side of the vessel. The ship's computer tried to translate but displayed an error message. "Unknown language?" Reed asked, surprised. The Alliance database contained every known language in explored space. "Apparently so," Tella replied. "Which suggests a new species." Reed finished her thought. This changed everything. First contact was both an exciting and dangerous prospect. The last new species discovered had been the warlike Vorn, who had attacked without warning. "I'm picking up something else," Tella said suddenly. "Some kind of automated beacon. Very weak." "Let's hear it," Reed ordered. Static filled the command center, then a voice, choppy and broken by interference. The words were strange, unlike any language they knew, but the tone was unmistakable. A distress call. Reed straightened his uniform. "It seems we have a rescue mission. Prepare a boarding party." "Sir," Merrick objected, "with all due respect, we don't know what's waiting in there. Standard protocol for unknown vessels would have us wait for a diplomatic team," Reed interrupted. "But that beacon is a distress call. Someone needs help and we're sworn to provide it, regardless of species." Merrick looked unhappy but nodded. "I'll lead the boarding party myself, sir." "No," Reed decided. "I'll go." He saw the surprise on his officers' faces. "This could be our first contact with a new civilization. As captain, it's my responsibility." An hour later, Reed stood in the shuttle bay with 5 officers all wearing protective suits. The strange ship had been pulled into the starward's docking area using tractor beams. Up close, the vessel looked even more primitive. The metal hull was thick and heavy, nothing like the lightweight materials used by the Alliance. There were what appeared to be actual windows, glass viewports rather than sensor arrays with digital displays. "Remember," Reed told his team, "we don't know what kind of beings built this ship or what conditions they live in. Stay alert." They approached the damaged section of the hull, which provided an entry point. As they floated through the breach, their suit lights illuminated a dark corridor. "Gravity's out," observed Engineer Val, a blue-skinned Tellarite. "Life support too," added Medical Officer Dorn. "Temperatures well below freezing." They pushed deeper into the ship, past rooms filled with strange equipment. Everything seemed designed for beings larger than most Alliance species. "These controls," Val said, examining a panel. "They're physical buttons and switches, not neural interfaces or even touch-sensitive. Whoever built this ship used manual controls. Primitives," someone muttered. Reed wasn't so sure. The design might be strange, but there was something solid about the ship. It had survived what looked like a serious attack, an attack that might have destroyed a more advanced vessel. They reached what appeared to be the command center. Large chairs faced forward toward dark screens. Everything was built on a scale slightly too large for comfort. "See if you can access their computer," Reed ordered Val. "I want to know who they are and what happened here." Val worked on a console while the others explored the room. Merrick discovered what looked like weapons, primitive projectile devices that used physical ammunition. "Captain," called Dorn suddenly, "you should see this." Reed floated over to where the medical officer was examining a dried substance on one of the chairs. "What is it?" "Blood," Dorn said. "But not like any I've seen before. Red, iron-based. Before." Reed could respond. Lights suddenly flickered on around them. Val jumped back from the console. "I didn't do that," she said. "The system activated on its own." A screen lit up, displaying symbols racing across it. Then a voice spoke. The same language they'd heard on the beacon. It sounded urgent, almost angry. "Get back to the shuttle," Reed ordered. "Now!" They hadn't reached the door when compartments in the walls opened, revealing what could only be defense systems. The team froze. "Nobody move," Reed whispered. The defense systems, gun-like objects, didn't fire. They seemed to be scanning the intruders. Slowly, one of the screens changed. The strange symbols were replaced by Alliance standard text. It was rough, like a basic translation. "Warning. Unauthorized personnel emergency protocols. Active USS Vanguard security system engaged. It's learning our language." Tella whispered in awe. The screen changed again, showing what looked like a logo, a blue circle with white stars and red stripes. Below it appeared new text. "Property of the United States of Earth Human Space Force." "Humans?" Reed read aloud. None of them had heard of such a species. An alarm began to sound, and the voice spoke again, this time with a few words in broken Alliance standard mixed with its own language. "Warning. Evacuation. System reboot. Distress signal activated." The ship shuddered around them. "Back to the shuttle now," Reed ordered. As they retreated, Reed glanced back at the command center. The screens were showing what looked like damage reports and system diagnostics. This ship, primitive as it seemed, was trying to repair itself. They barely made it back to their shuttle before the docking clamps that held the vessel released. The strange ship was breaking free. As they watched from the safety of the starward, the damaged vessel's engines glowed to life, not the clean blue of quantum drives, but an orange-red flame that looked like actual combustion. "Impossible," Val whispered. "They're using chemical rockets as backup propulsion." The ship moved slowly away, its systems clearly damaged but somehow still functioning. "Captain," Jax called over the comm, "we're receiving a transmission. A new ship is approaching at high speed, and it's identical in design to this one." Reed felt a chill that had nothing to do with the coldness of space. "Get us back to the ship, now." As their shuttle returned to the starward, Reed couldn't shake the feeling that they had stumbled onto something important. Humans. A species that built ships unlike any in known space. Ships that looked primitive and harmless, until they weren't, and more of them were coming. Captain Reed paced the command center of the starward, his 4 fingers tapping anxiously against his leg. The view screen showed 2 ships now, the damaged vessel they had boarded, and a new arrival that had appeared at the edge of their sensor range. "Status on the approaching ship?" Reed asked. Officer Jax worked his console. "Similar design to the first vessel, Captain, but larger. It's moving at surprising speed for such a bulky craft." "Are they responding to our hails?" "Communications officer." Brell shook his head. "Nothing on standard Alliance frequencies. I've tried all known communication protocols." Reed stopped pacing. "Lieutenant Merrick, battle stations." The security chief nodded and pressed an alarm. Throughout the ship, crew members rushed to their posts. "Sir?" Science Officer Tella spoke up, her insect-like mandibles clicking with excitement. "I've analyzed the data we collected from the damaged ship. The species calls themselves humans. They appear to be from a planet called Earth." "What else did you learn?" Reed asked. "Their technology is unusual. They don't use quantum drives or neural interfaces. Instead, they rely on nuclear fission and what they call computer systems with manual controls." The officers exchanged glances. Nuclear fission was ancient technology, abandoned by most species once they discovered cleaner energy sources. "What about weapons?" Merrick asked. "I detected what appeared to be kinetic weapons. They use physical projectiles rather than energy. Also, explosive devices and some basic laser technology." Merrick laughed. "Projectile weapons? In space combat? They might as well throw rocks." Reed wasn't laughing. "They survived an encounter with the Crescent Empire. Don't underestimate them." The door slid open and Engineer Val rushed in. "Captain, I've been studying the scans from their ship. There's something everyone's missing." "Go on," Reed said. "Yes, their technology seems primitive compared to ours, but it's built differently." Val brought up a diagram on the main screen. "Look at the hull, it's incredibly thick. Multiple redundant systems, backup after backup. Their ship isn't elegant, but it's..." She searched for the word. "Stubborn." "Stubborn?" Brell asked with a smile. "It's designed to take damage and keep functioning," Val explained. "Our ships avoid damage with shields and maneuverability. Theirs absorbs it." Reed considered this. "A different approach to the same problem." "Exactly," Val nodded. "And that's not all. The ship's internal atmosphere. It's oxygen-rich with pressure and gravity settings much higher than Alliance standard. These humans must be physically adapted to conditions most species would find uncomfortable." Before anyone could respond, Jax called out, "Captain, the approaching ship is hailing us. They figured out our communication system." "On screen," Reed ordered. The view screen flickered and showed an image that made several officers gasp. The being on screen looked almost like a Tyranny, but with less pronounced facial ridges and strange, rounded ears. Its skin was pale and it had fur on top of its head. It wore what appeared to be a uniform with markings on the shoulders. "This is Captain Tom Walker of the Earth Defense Force Vessel Defender," the being said in accented but understandable Alliance standard. "You have our rescue ship. We want it back. Now." Reed stepped forward. "I am Captain Reed of the Alliance vessel Starward. We found your ship damaged and adrift. We boarded with peaceful intentions to offer assistance." The human's expression didn't change. Then you won't mind returning it and any crew you found? We found no crew, Reed explained. The ship was empty, but its defense systems activated when we were exploring. It's currently moving away from our position. For the first time, the human showed emotion. Concern flashed across its face. The Vanguard activated its emergency protocols? Did you access its systems? Our engineer was attempting to learn more about your vessel, Reed admitted. Captain Walker shook his head. The Vanguard was damaged rescuing a transport ship from Empire raiders. Its AI is in protection mode. If you triggered its defenses, it's now transmitting a distress signal to all human ships in the sector. Reed felt a chill. How many human ships are in this sector? Enough, Walker replied simply. I suggest we both pursue the Vanguard before its damaged systems create a bigger problem. With your permission, I'll send over my engineer to explain how to safely approach it. Reed hesitated. This would be the first human to board the Starward. We're not familiar with your species' biology or requirements, he said carefully. Walker smiled for the first time. Don't worry, we can survive in most environments. Humans are adaptable. After ending the transmission, Reed called an emergency meeting with his senior officers. I don't like this, Merrick said immediately. We know nothing about these humans. Which is why this is an opportunity, Tella countered. First contact with a new spacefaring species. Reed listened to the debate. Some viewed the humans as primitive and therefore harmless. Others saw them as potential threats precisely because they were unknown. They said they were rescuing a transport from Empire raiders, Reed noted. That suggests they oppose the Empire. Or it could be misdirection, Merrick argued. A trick to gain our trust. The discussion was interrupted when Jax reported that a small shuttle had launched from the human ship and was requesting permission to dock. Decision time, Reed said, looking around at his officers. We can refuse and potentially create an incident with a new species, or we can follow first contact protocols and welcome them aboard. In the end, curiosity won out over caution. The human shuttle was allowed to dock, and Reed went with Merrick and Tella to greet their visitor. The docking bay doors opened to reveal a single figure in what appeared to be a simple environmental suit. It was bulkier than Alliance suits, less elegant, but functional. The human removed its helmet. This one had different coloring than Captain Walker. Darker skin and different facial features, though the same general structure. It had long black fur tied back from its face. Lieutenant Jack Ross, Earth Defense Force, the human said with a small bow. Engineer specializing in AI systems. You're smaller than I expected, Merrick blurted out, looking up at the human who stood a head taller than any of them. Jack smiled. I'm actually considered average height for a human. Reed stepped forward. We're pleased to welcome you aboard, Lieutenant Ross. This is my science officer, Tella, and security chief, Merrick. The human looked at each of them with obvious curiosity, but maintained a professional demeanor. Thank you for your help with the Vanguard. That ship has already been through enough trouble. As they walked through the corridors of the Starward, Ross looked around with interest. Beautiful ship, very streamlined. Unlike yours, Merrick said, not bothering to hide his judgment. Ross didn't seem offended. Human ships are built with different priorities. We focus on durability and redundancy. Because you expect to be damaged? Tella asked. We plan for worst-case scenarios, Ross replied. It's saved our lives more than once. In the command center, Engineer Val joined them, her blue skin flushing slightly darker with excitement at meeting the human engineer. The Vanguard's AI is called Lisa, Ross explained, bringing up diagrams on a portable device. When damaged, she reverts to core programming. Protect the ship, protect any data, and call for help. She? Reed asked. Just a convention. Lisa stands for Logical Intelligence Support Architecture. When she detected unknown beings accessing her systems, she initiated defense protocols. Can you shut her down remotely? Val asked. Ross shook his head. Not when she's in protection mode. We need to physically access her core, but approaching the ship while she's defensive will be tricky. If she's protecting the ship, why did she break away from ours? Reed asked. To lead potential threats away from her location while broadcasting for help, Ross explained. It's a standard evasion protocol. As they discussed strategy, an alarm suddenly blared through the starward. "Captain," Jax called from his station. "5 ships just appeared at the edge of the system. Crescent Empire signatures." The view screen showed 5 sleek, crescent-shaped vessels moving into formation. "They must have been tracking the Vanguard," Ross said grimly. "Empire forces have been hunting our rescue ships for months." "Why would they hunt rescue ships?" Reed asked, confused. Ross's expression hardened. "Because we help anyone who needs it, including ships the Empire would rather see destroyed. They consider us interfering." "We're being hailed by the Empire flagship," Brell announced. "Put them through," Reed ordered. The screen changed to show a stern-faced Empire commander. "Alliance vessel," the commander said coldly. "You are harboring a human ship in neutral space. Surrender it immediately." Reed felt all eyes on him. His response would set the tone for whatever happened next. "The human vessel is under our protection," he said firmly, surprising even himself. "They assisted us with a rescue operation." The Empire commander's face darkened. "Then you have chosen to ally with these primitives. Be warned, their vessels may look harmless, but these humans are more dangerous than you know." As the transmission ended, Reed looked at Ross, seeing the human in a new light. "It seems we have common enemies, Lieutenant," he said. "Perhaps it's time you told us exactly why the Empire considers humans so dangerous." The command center of the Starward was silent. All eyes moved between Captain Reed and the human engineer Jack Ross. Outside, the 5 Crescent Empire ships moved into attack formation. "We have 2 minutes before they're in firing range, Lieutenant," Merrick reported. Reed turned to Ross. "You heard the Empire, Commander. Why do they consider humans dangerous?" Ross ran a hand through his dark hair. "It's a long story, but the short version is that we don't back down when they threaten weaker ships. Most species avoid conflict with the Empire. Humans don't." "Don't or can't?" Tella asked, her compound eyes gleaming with curiosity. "Both," Ross admitted. "Earth was never invited to join the Alliance. We're newcomers to this part of space. We didn't know the rules." He smiled slightly. "By the time we learned about the power balance between the Alliance and Empire, we'd already made our choice." "Captain," Brell interrupted. "The Defender is hailing us." The screen changed to show Captain Walker's face. "Captain Reed, I see our friends from the Empire have arrived. I'm sure they've told you humans are dangerous and should be avoided." "That was mentioned," Reed replied dryly. "What they didn't tell you is why they think that." Walker's expression grew serious. 3 months ago, a human colony ship accidentally strayed into what the Empire considers their territory. They disabled it and were boarding when a human rescue vessel responded. "The Vanguard?" Reed guessed. Walker nodded. "1 ship against 3 Empire cruisers. The Vanguard took heavy damage but managed to hold them off long enough for the colony ship to escape. The Empire hasn't forgotten that humiliation." "1 small ship against 3 cruisers?" Merrick asked skeptically. "How?" "We're stubborn," Walker said with a grim smile. "And we don't fight according to the rules they expect." "Captain," Jax called out, "the Empire ships are charging weapons." Reed made his decision. "Lieutenant Ross, return to your ship. Brell informed the Empire that we're not surrendering anyone. Merrick, shields at maximum." "Sir," Merrick objected, "the Starward isn't a warship. We're outgunned." "We're also not cowards," Reed replied firmly. "And we don't abandon people who need help." As Ross hurried back to the shuttle bay, Reed ordered the Starward to move between the Defender and the approaching Empire ships. It was a statement, the Alliance vessel choosing a side. "Captain," Tella called suddenly, "I'm detecting more ships entering the system." Reed's heart sank. If the Empire had called reinforcements, they had no chance. But when the screen showed the new arrivals, they weren't the sleek crescents of the Empire. They were blocky, angular vessels with thick hulls and visible weapon mounts. Human ships, 3 of them moving in fast. "Sir," Brell reported with surprise, They're broadcasting on all frequencies, including Empire channels. Message reads, "This is Human Defense Force Squadron 7. We are responding to a distress call. Any hostile action against Alliance or human vessels will be met with appropriate force." Reed couldn't hide his surprise. They're challenging the Empire openly, with just 3 ships? The comm system activated and Captain Walker appeared again, looking almost apologetic. "Sorry about this. When a human ship sends a distress call, we tend to come running. I hope you don't mind the company." Before Reed could respond, a new transmission came through, from the human squadron commander. "This is Commander James of the HDF Determination. Captain Reed, we've been monitoring the situation. Your protection of the Defender is appreciated. What's your status?" The straightforwardness of the human surprised Reed. No diplomatic dancing, just direct questions. "We're outgunned but holding position. The damaged vessel Vanguard is moving away on autopilot." "Understood. We'll handle the Empire ships if they push. Squadron 7 specializes in discouraging bullies." The Empire commander's face appeared on a split screen, now looking less confident. "This is not your concern, Alliance. These humans have violated Empire territory repeatedly. They refuse to follow established protocols." "What protocols are those?" Commander James cut in. "The ones where you attack civilian transports, or the ones where you claim new territories without negotiation?" The exchange was interrupted by an urgent call from engineering. Val's blue face appeared on a side screen. "Captain, I've been analyzing the readings from the Vanguard. Its reactor is becoming unstable. If it continues on its current course, it could detonate in 30 minutes. A detonation of a nuclear fission reactor? Tella started calculating. The radiation burst could affect every ship in this sector. The human ships immediately changed formation. 2 moved to intercept the drifting Vanguard while the Defender and 1 other maintained position between the Alliance ship and the Empire vessels. "Captain Reed," Commander James called. "We need to deal with the Vanguard immediately. Can your ship assist? We could use your tractor beams to stabilize it while our engineers work." Reed didn't hesitate. "Of course, the Empire will have to wait." To Reed's surprise, the Empire commander didn't object. Even they recognized the danger of a reactor explosion. Instead, their ships pulled back to a safe distance, watching. As the Starward moved toward the drifting human vessel, Reed called a quick meeting with his senior officers. "I need options for stabilizing that ship," he said. Engineer Val spoke first. "Their nuclear reactor design is strange to us, but the principles should be similar to early Alliance technology. If we can get close enough, we might be able to help contain the reaction." "It's too dangerous," Merrick argued. "The radiation would kill anyone who boarded." Ross, who had remained on the Starward at Reed's request, shook his head. "Not humans. We can handle radiation exposure better than most species, at least for short periods. Our bodies evolved on a planet with higher background radiation than many worlds." "That's advantageous," Tella noted, fascinated. "Only if you need to survive on harsh worlds," Ross replied. "Which we often do." Reed made his decision. "Val, you'll work with the human engineers. Tella, coordinate with their science team. Merrick, keep an eye on the Empire ships." The next 20 minutes were tense. The Starward used its tractor beams to hold the damaged Vanguard steady while human engineers in heavy protection suits worked to stabilize its reactor. Val coordinated from the Starward, exchanging technical information with the human team. "They're using coolant methods I've never seen before," she reported with professional admiration. "Improvising with available materials." "Is it working?" Reed asked. "Yes," Val replied, surprised. "It shouldn't be, but it is. They're essentially tricking the reactor into a controlled shutdown by... It's hard to explain. Their approach isn't in any technical manual I've studied." Ross smiled. "That's because humans write the manual after we figure out what works, not before." Finally, the human team reported success. The reactor was stabilizing. The immediate danger had passed. As the Alliance and human ships regrouped, Reed received a request for a face-to-face meeting. Not just from Captain Walker and Commander James, but from a new arrival, a diplomatic vessel that had entered the system during the crisis. "They're asking to come aboard," Brell reported. One representative from their diplomatic corps. Reed agreed, curious to meet another human. When the diplomatic shuttle docked, Reed was surprised to see a human female step out. She wore a simple blue uniform with minimal markings and her posture was formal but relaxed. Ambassador Kelly Bishop, she introduced herself with a slight bow. Thank you for having me aboard, Captain Reed. Reed led her to the conference room, where the senior officers gathered. The Empire commander had also been invited and sat stiffly at one end of the table, flanked by two of his officers. This situation has escalated unnecessarily, Ambassador Kelly began. But it has also created an opportunity. The Earth Defense Force has been operating in this sector for 2 years, primarily as a rescue service for ships in distress. Interfering in Empire security operations, the Empire commander corrected coldly. Kelly turned to him, unfazed. Let's be honest, Commander. When you disable civilian ships for security inspections, people tend to disappear. We simply offer an alternative. She turned back to Reed. We've avoided formal contact with the Alliance because we weren't sure of our welcome. Humans are new to interstellar politics. New and disruptive, the Empire commander muttered. Yes, Kelly agreed, surprising him. We are disruptive. Humans have a history of standing up to bullies, even when it's dangerous to do so. She looked directly at Reed. The question is, does the Alliance value that trait or fear it? Reed considered the events of the past hours. The humans had come to rescue their damaged ship without hesitation. They had stood against the Empire despite being outnumbered, and they had risked their lives to prevent a disaster that would have affected everyone. Ambassador, Reed replied carefully, I think it's time the Alliance learned more about humans, officially. Kelly smiled. I was hoping you'd say that, because there's something else you should know about humans. She activated a small projector that displayed a map of the sector. We've been establishing rescue outposts here, and here, all along the border regions where ships often go missing. The Empire commander stood up angrily. Those are strategic locations. Yes, Kelly replied calmly. Strategic for saving lives. As the Empire commander stormed out, Reed looked at the map with new understanding. The humans hadn't just been rescuing ships. They'd been creating a buffer zone between Alliance space and the Empire. Why? He asked simply. Kelly's expression grew serious. Because someone needs to stand in the dangerous places, Captain, and humans, well, we've had a lot of practice with danger. The Star Wars conference room had become the center of an unlikely gathering. Captain Reed sat with his senior officers, still processing Ambassador Kelly's revelations about human activities in the border regions. The Empire delegation had left in anger, but their ships remained in the system, watching from a distance. You've been busy, Reed said to Kelly. 2 years of rescue operations without official contact with the Alliance. Kelly nodded. We thought it best to establish ourselves first. Actions speak louder than words. A human saying? Tella asked, her mandibles clicking with interest. Yes, Kelly smiled. We have many like it. The door slid open, and Engineer Val entered with Lieutenant Ross. Both looked tired but satisfied. The Vanguard's systems are stable, Val reported. We've managed to download its logs. Reed gestured to the main screen. Let's see what this ship was doing when it was attacked. The screen lit up with images that made several officers gasp. It showed the Vanguard positioning itself between a small civilian transport and 3 Empire cruisers. The transport was damaged, drifting helplessly as Empire weapons fired upon it. The Vanguard, despite its smaller size, charged directly at the lead Empire ship, not firing weapons, but simply accelerating toward it at dangerous speed. What are they doing? Merrick asked in disbelief. That's suicide, Ross shook his head. It's called a bluff. The Empire captain had to choose between continuing the attack on the transport or avoiding a collision. On screen, the Empire ship veered away at the last moment. The Vanguard used the confusion to deploy some kind of energy field around the transport, protecting it from further attacks. That's not standard shield technology, Tella observed. No, Ross confirmed. It's an experimental emergency barrier. One-time use burns out the projectors, but it bought enough time for the transport to restart its engines. The recording continued, showing the Vanguard taking heavy damage as it covered the transport's escape. Its hull was breached multiple times, but its systems kept functioning. Look at the reactor readings, Val pointed. Any Alliance ship would have shut down after taking that much damage to its power core. Human ships are designed to keep working even when critically damaged, Ross explained. It's not elegant, but it keeps us alive. Reed watched as the Vanguard finally broke away from the battle, its engines flaring erratically. The ship was clearly crippled but still moving under its own power. The crew? Reed asked quietly. Ross's face grew solemn. Evacuation pods launched before the worst damage. The Empire ships ignored them. Standard practice, unfortunately. Our rescue ships picked them up later. One small ship against 3 cruisers, Merrick said, echoing his earlier skepticism, but now his voice held a note of respect. And they actually succeeded. At great cost, Kelly added. But yes. Reed studied the human ambassador. You said someone needs to stand in the dangerous places. Is that what humans do? It's what we've always done, Kelly replied. On Earth, throughout our history, there were always people who ran toward danger rather than away from it. Firefighters who entered burning buildings, aid workers who went to disaster zones, pilots who flew into storms to rescue stranded ships. Your entire species does this? Tella asked skeptically. Kelly laughed. No, not everyone, but enough of us. When we came to space and saw what was happening in these border regions, ships disappearing, refugees with nowhere to go, we couldn't just watch. Before anyone could respond, an alarm blared through the ship. Captain, Jax's voice came, over the comm. The Empire ships are moving into attack formation. Everyone rushed to the bridge. On the main screen they saw the 5 crescent-shaped vessels advancing, weapons charged. They're targeting the Defender and our rescue squadron, Jax reported. Hail them, Reed ordered. The Empire commander appeared on screen, his expression cold. This conversation is over. The humans have violated our territory for the last time. Any ship that stands with them will be considered an enemy of the Empire. The transmission cut off abruptly. Reed turned to Kelly. What can your ships do against 5 cruisers? Fight hard and die well, she replied grimly. But we won't run. Neither will we, Reed decided, surprising his officers. Battle stations. As the crew prepared for combat, Reed pulled Kelly aside. I need to know our chances. Kelly's expression was serious. Human ships are tough, but we're outnumbered. The Vanguard is still damaged and the Starward isn't built for combat. So we lose, Reed concluded. Probably, Kelly admitted. Unless what? Unless we can access the Vanguard's data core. It recorded the Empire ship's shield frequencies during the previous engagement. That might give us an advantage. Reed immediately called Val and Ross to the bridge. Can you get that data from the Vanguard? Maybe, Ross said. But we'd need to board it again, and its defense systems are still active. I'll go, Val volunteered. I've studied their systems now. It's too dangerous, Ross objected. The radiation levels are still high from the reactor instability. Val's blue skin darkened with determination. You said humans can handle radiation for short periods. So can Tellarites. Our homeworld has 3 suns. We evolved with high radiation tolerance. Reed looked at the approaching Empire ships. You have 10 minutes. While Val and Ross took a shuttle to the damaged Vanguard, the other ships moved into defensive positions. The 3 human rescue ships formed a front line, with the Defender and Starward behind them. They're sacrificing themselves. To protect us, Tella observed. No, Reed replied, understanding at last. They're buying time. On the screen they watched the Empire ships approaching. The lead cruiser fired a warning shot that flashed past the human squadron. Human ships are not returning fire, Jax reported. Sounding surprised, they're waiting, Reed realized. Conserving power, Commander James's voice came over the comm. Captain Reed, we can hold them for 5 minutes, maybe less. After that it gets messy. Understood, Commander. Our team is working on a solution. The Empire ships fired again, this time striking the shields of the lead human vessel. The ship shuddered but maintained position. Their shields are holding, Merrick noted with surprise. How? Differently designed, Reed replied, remembering what he'd learned. Not to deflect, but to absorb. Another blast hit the human ships, stronger this time. One of the vessels visibly rocked from the impact, but its return fire was precise, targeting the same spot on the lead Empire cruiser repeatedly. They're not trying to destroy it, Tella observed. They're wearing down its shields in one location. Captain, Brell called out. Val and Ross are reporting success. They've transmitted the shield frequency data. Tella immediately began analyzing the information. These readings are remarkable. The Empire ships cycle their shield frequencies, but there's a pattern, a momentary vulnerability when they switch. Can we exploit that? Reed asked. Yes, but only with precisely timed shots. Reed opened a channel to all ships. Commander James, Ambassador Kelly, we have the shield data. On my mark, target these coordinates with everything you've got. The next moments were tense as Tella calculated the exact timing. The Empire ships continued advancing, their weapons charging for a full barrage. They're preparing to fire all weapons, Merrick warned. Time the shots. Now, Tella called. Every Alliance and human ship fired simultaneously, their weapons converging on the same point on the lead Empire cruiser's shields, just as they cycled to a new frequency. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The combined attack punched through the momentary weakness, striking the ship's primary weapon array. The cruiser's lights flickered and it drifted out of formation. Direct hit, Jax reported with excitement. The other Empire ships hesitated, clearly surprised by the precision of the attack. Again, Reed ordered. Next target. They repeated the maneuver on the second cruiser with similar results. This time, the remaining Empire ships began to pull back. They're retreating, Merrick said in disbelief. No, Reed corrected him. They're regrouping. This isn't over. But before the Empire could reorganize, new alarms sounded. Captain, Jax called, his voice filled with awe. More ships entering the system, a lot more. The view screen showed at least 15 vessels of various designs, all with the now familiar, blocky, angular look of human ships. The cavalry has arrived, Kelly said with a smile. When a human distress call goes unanswered for too long, we tend to send everyone available. The Empire cruisers, now faced with overwhelming numbers, began a full retreat. As the tension on the bridge eased, Reed turned to Ambassador Kelly. You never mentioned you had this many ships in the sector. You never asked, Kelly replied simply. Humans may look like we're standing alone in dangerous places, Captain Reed, but we're rarely actually alone. Reed looked at the screen filled with human vessels. Ships that had once seemed primitive and laughable. No one was laughing now. I think, Reed said slowly, that the Alliance Council needs to hear about everything that happened here, and about the true value of having dangerous allies. 2 weeks after the encounter with the Empire ships, Captain Reed stood in the Grand Chamber of the Alliance Council. The circular room was filled with representatives from over 30 species, all seated according to their planet's status in the Alliance hierarchy. Reed had just finished presenting his report on the events in the neutral zone. He described finding the damaged human ship, the confrontation with the Empire forces, and the effective cooperation between the Alliance and human vessels. In conclusion, Reed said, I believe formal recognition of human presence in border regions would benefit the Alliance. Their rescue operations have saved countless lives, including many Alliance citizens. The council chamber filled with murmurs. Not everyone seemed convinced. Councillor Varn, a tall, gray-skinned diplomat, stood to speak. These humans operate unusual vessels, engage in risky maneuvers, and have already provoked the Empire. Is bringing such a volatile species into our sphere wise? With respect, Counselor, Reed replied. It was the Empire that attacked first, both the human rescue ship and the civilian transport it was protecting. But you admit the humans charged directly at an Empire cruiser, another counselor pointed. Such aggressive tactics could escalate tensions. Before Reed could respond, the chamber doors opened. Ambassador Kelly entered, accompanied by Captain Walker and, surprisingly, Engineer Val. The council head, an elderly Solari with gleaming silver skin, acknowledged them. The council recognizes Ambassador Kelly of Earth. You may address this gathering. Kelly stepped forward. Her simple blue uniform stood out among the elaborate robes and ceremonial armor of the council members. Thank you for allowing me to speak, she began. I understand your concerns about human involvement in border regions. Our ships are different. Our tactics are unconventional. And yes, we sometimes take risks that others might avoid. She activated a holographic display in the center of the room. It showed a map of the border between Alliance and Empire space. For the past 2 years, human ships have operated in these regions, she continued, highlighting several areas. In that time, civilian ship disappearances have decreased by 63%. Refugee transports reaching safe harbors have increased by 70%. The council members studied the data with interest. How have you achieved this? The council head asked. By being where we're needed most, Kelly replied simply, and by being willing to do what others cannot, or will not, do. Captain Walker stepped forward. The Empire preys on those they perceive as weak. They expect ships to flee or surrender. Human vessels do neither. This disrupts their standard tactics. Counselor Varn frowned. You deliberately provoke the Empire? No. Walker shook his head. We simply refuse to abandon those who need help, even when helping is dangerous. Engineer Val spoke next, surprising Reed. If I may address the council, I've worked directly with human engineers and have studied their technology. What at first appeared primitive to me is actually purposefully designed for extreme conditions. She brought up technical schematics of the Vanguard. Human ships have redundant systems that allow them to function even when severely damaged. Their hulls are thicker than necessary by our standards, but provide protection in situations where shields fail. Their power systems prioritize stability over efficiency. These sound like warships, one counselor observed with concern. No, Val corrected. They're survivor ships, built to endure, not to conquer. The difference is important. The council debated among themselves while Reed, Kelly, Walker, and Val waited. Finally, the council head raised a hand for silence. A question for Captain Reed, he said. You initially described the human vessel as primitive and laughable. What changed your assessment? Reed thought carefully before answering. I witnessed their actions, not just their appearance. The Vanguard sustained damage that would have destroyed an Alliance vessel, yet continued its mission. When the Empire threatened us, the humans stood their ground despite being outnumbered. They value lives over technology, courage over caution, and action over words. He looked at Kelly and Walker. I learned that sometimes being dangerous is necessary when facing dangerous threats. The humans aren't dangerous because they seek conflict. They're dangerous because they refuse to abandon others to their fate, no matter the risk to themselves. The council chambers grew quiet as his words sank in. We have much to consider, the council head finally said. Ambassador Kelly, would you be willing to share more details about human rescue operations? Kelly nodded. Of course. We're also prepared to coordinate our efforts with Alliance patrols, if you're willing to work with us. As the formal proceedings continued, Reed stepped back. He found himself standing next to Tella, who had been called to provide scientific testimony. They're actually considering it, Tella said quietly, her mandibles clicking with excitement. Formal cooperation with humans. They should, Reed replied. We need them. Need their dangerous ships, you mean? Tella asked with amusement. Need their determination, Reed corrected, and their willingness to stand in dangerous places. The council's discussion continued for hours. Finally, they reached a decision. The council head stood to address the chamber. After careful consideration, the Alliance Council proposes establishing human response units along the border regions. These units will consist of human and Alliance ships working together to protect civilian vessels and respond to distress calls. This arrangement will be provisional for 1 standard year, after which we will reassess. Ambassador Kelly accepted with a formal bow. Earth thanks you for your trust. We will not disappoint you. Later, at a small gathering to celebrate the new arrangement, Reed found himself speaking with Kelly and Walker. The council members who oppose this decision still think your ships are too primitive and your tactics too reckless, Reed told them. Walker smiled. Let them think that. Being underestimated has its advantages. Besides, Kelly added, we're not here to impress anyone with our technology. We're here to save lives. Engineer Val joined them, accompanied by Lieutenant Ross. The human and Tellarite had developed a close professional relationship while working to repair the Vanguard. We've been comparing notes on ship design, Val said. I think a hybrid approach could be interesting. Alliance efficiency with human redundancy. A dangerous combination, Ross replied with a smile. Speaking of the Vanguard, Reed asked, what will happen to it now? Repairs are almost complete, Walker said. It's being refitted as the first official human response unit vessel. The Alliance is providing some upgraded components. And the crew? Reed asked. Mixed, Kelly replied. Human and Alliance volunteers. Your engineer Val has already signed. Up. Reed looked at Val in surprise. She shrugged, her blue skin darkening slightly in the Tellarite equivalent of a blush. Someone needs to make sure they don't blow themselves up with their primitive nuclear reactors, she said, but her tone was affectionate. As the gathering continued, Reed found himself by a viewport, looking out at the space station's docking area. The Vanguard was visible, undergoing repairs. Its blocky shape and thick hull no longer seemed primitive to him, just different, designed for a different purpose, with different priorities. Ambassador Kelly joined him at the viewport. Having second thoughts about supporting us? She asked. Reed shook his head. No, just reflecting on first impressions. Let me guess, Kelly said with a knowing smile. You thought our ships looked harmless. Worse, Reed admitted. We laughed at them. Kelly's smile widened. Everyone does at first, until they realize those primitive ships are exactly what you want beside you when everything goes wrong. As if on cue, an alarm sounded throughout the station. A voice came over the communication system. Attention all vessels. We have received a distress call from a transport near the Scarlet Nebula. Empire raiders reported in the area. Reed and Kelly exchanged a glance. The Starward can be ready in 20 minutes, Reed said. The Vanguard is already powering up, Kelly replied. Repairs or no repairs, it can fly. As they hurried to their ships, Reed thought about how quickly things had changed. 2 weeks ago, he had laughed at a strange-looking vessel adrift in space. Now he was rushing to join it on a rescue mission. The dangers hadn't changed. The Empire was still a threat. The border regions were still contested. But now, standing in those dangerous places, the Alliance ships wouldn't be alone. They would have their dangerous allies. The humans who ran toward trouble rather than away from it. The humans whose ships might look primitive and laughable until you needed them most, and no one was laughing anymore.